I just couldn't put the puzzle together.
Once I got started, I was eating, drinking, sleeping, trying to figure this out.
It was scary, and something had to happen for him, and I knew I could be that something, so I had to do it.
I realized that sometimes just showing up is all you need to do.
Hey, it's Julie, and this is Top of Mind. We are doing something completely different today in honor of the month-long effort known as Light the World. My team and I are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which invites us to light the world with acts of service as we celebrate the Christmas season.
And today we're going to share with you an incredible story about people stepping up with acts of service, both large and small, that led to miracles for a family in crisis.
So, folks, this is Amber Borowski-Johnson. She first told a smaller version of this story for the public radio station she works for.
That's right, KPCW, based in Park City, Utah. And I want you to meet the Karrens from the Heber Valley, a beautiful mountain community just down the road from Park City.
I'm Brady Karren.
I'm Meranie Karren.
And, we've had a heck of a last 5 years.
Service has touched our hearts and our lives. We also have had the miracle of finding somebody we never thought we would find.
So Brady and Meranie are in their late 40s. They have 3 daughters who are 13, 11, and 7. And I first learned about them from an article in a local magazine that I sometimes freelance for.
Cool. What was the story that you thought at first?
You know, at first, I thought it was about a community fundraiser to help cover medical bills for Brady's liver transplant. It took a while to track them down. They have very limited social media presence. And when I asked if I could tell their story on the radio, Brady was pretty reluctant. He's pretty uncomfortable talking about himself, and even today, it's still a really tender, emotional story.
I mean, the most important thing for me is, just making sure the community knows how much we appreciate the support that they gave us. It saved our family. And to me, that's the reason, I guess, why I did this is simply that's the most important thing to me, is making sure that they know the gratitude that we have.
Wow. Okay, so where do we start, Amber?
How about Memorial Day weekend, 2020? That's when things first fell apart for Brady.
Saturday morning, we were riding horses, took the girls up on the mountain shooting, did all the stuff we normally do. And then that evening, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'd hardly had enough energy to towel off when I got out of the shower. Like I could barely do anything.
I mean, he could hardly walk from one room to the other, and he started to turn very yellow.
We couldn't get in the dock until Tuesday because it was Memorial Day Monday. Basically what he said is your liver is just, it's dead, it's cirrhotic. And I'm like, well, how is it? How do I have a cirrhotic liver?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a big partier. I don't go, I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm not, how could my liver be cirrhotic? And anyways, long story short, I was bleeding internally massively. And so I had to get a procedure where they basically put a shunt in the liver to help the blood get through it.
But they didn't even do the procedure at the nearest hospital to the Karrens' home. So they drove 30 minutes to another, and then another. And this was during COVID. So hospitals were super busy and had lots of restrictions about who could even come inside.
And so after 3 or 4 hospitals of, getting set up, them saying, yeah, we'll do this, get set up, get inside, get to a room, get in their gown, all that stuff. It's like, oh, no, we actually don't do it. Get in the car, go to the next one. Get in the car. Anyway, so we ended up at St. Mark's in Salt Lake.
By now, it's been a full day, and they're panicking.
Yeah. I called my mom and dad who live in Richfield, and I'm like, he is in liver failure. He's bleeding out. I need you to come get my girls. I don't know when I'll be home. Hysterical. Everybody just kind of was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Finally, the hospital in Salt Lake where they'd ended up said Brady needed to wait until the morning for the emergency procedure. So it was looking like Brady might be there for a while.
And I'm thinking, I'm going to run to Walmart down the street really quick because we were planning on going home that day. And I thought, I'm just going to run and get him a toothbrush and a razor and be right back. And when I came back, the doors were locked and they wouldn't let me back in. And I was hysterical because of the day we'd had. And I said, I just need to tell him goodbye and explain to him what's going on. And they said, well, that's fine, but you have to be escorted by the security guard. And so he escorted me up, and sweet old man, and he's just talking a million miles a minute all the way up to the room. And as my head is spinning, but he said something about being from Idaho, and he referred to himself in the third person, and he said his name was Keith. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt it was him.
Wait, him who?
Meranie's birth father.
What?
Yeah, this is the part of the story that's just really unbelievable. And in the Karren's mind, evidence that God cares about the details of our lives.
Oh my goodness, I can't even. Okay. What's the deal?
So backing up just a bit. Meranie was adopted.
And I have a little brother that was also adopted. And we grew up in a small town in central Utah in Richfield. And I've always known from day one, before I even could understand, that I was adopted, that it was a blessing. I was special. I was a miracle. And that somebody gave me up to give me something better.
And Meranie says she was really happy. So she didn't have a hunger to find her birth parents growing up. But then about 6 years ago, Meranie gave her brother a DNA test for Christmas.
That's so funny. I think I got one of those same things for Christmas, and I think I gave one to my mom too. Like, all the family history websites were really pushing it around that time.
Yeah, so in the Karren's case, that test triggered a whole sequence of events. Meranie's brother found his birth mom right away.
Like, so fast. It was just crazy. And it went really well. He has a great relationship with her. And I was very concerned about hurting my mom's feelings, making sure that my parents were okay with that. And so was he. And they were very supportive of us finding our birth families. And so that was also a blessing.
So Meranie talked with her husband, Brady, and they decided she should go ahead and get the DNA test done too.
We were a little nervous about it. You just don't know what the outcome's going to be, but we prayed about it, and we both felt pretty good about it, that we'd go ahead and move forward. And I printed off every single family tree I could find. And I taped them together. I would have these big sheets of family trees. And at night, we would be sitting together in the family room, and I'm just trying to match, like, okay, does this one match? And is this one connected? And I just couldn't put the puzzle together. I just felt like it was hopeless. It felt like it was a 5,000-piece puzzle with zero insight.
This went on for months and months. And then Meranie got an email through the family history website from a stranger named Tammy.
A sweet lady, and she said, I see we're cousins, but your tree doesn't match up to mine. And so I emailed her back, and I said, well, you're looking at my adoptive tree, and I don't know anything. And she said, well, I love genealogy, and I would love to help you on your quest. And I was really excited, but she said, the thing is I'm going to need to actually get into your account so that I don't have to bother you every 5 seconds to try and find things. And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of nerve-wracking. What can you see on my account? But I felt really good about it, and I, felt like it was going to be fine. So I gave her access, and she says she felt such an urgency that she had never felt before. And she said, I would go to bed about 2 a.m, and I was back up at 4 a.m. I just couldn't stop.
What's difficult to explain is how obsessed I was with it. So my name is Tammy Felt, and I live in Salt Lake City.
So Tammy's not a professional genealogist, but it's been a lifelong interest.
I have to give the credit to my grandmother. When I was very young, my grandmother would bring her big family history book out onto the kitchen table, and she would talk about all of her family. But my grandfather never would talk about it. He didn't want to talk about his family. I could go quite far with my grandmother's tree, but I could barely go with my grandfather's. And it just so happened that Meranie was kind of red flag to me because she came up on the line that I'm most interested in researching.
Okay, so Tammy's trying to figure out her grandfather's line, and then up in the system comes Meranie as having DNA from that same line?
Yeah, right. But Meranie's family tree doesn't line up with their DNA because, like she told Tammy,
Right, she's
she's
adopted.
adopted. Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the disconnect. But get this, Tammy had just barely done a whole online course on how to find biological parents using DNA results.
Wow.
And so by the time I interacted with Meranie, I felt quite confident that I could do it. I was just thrilled that she would, share all of her DNA matches with me so that I could test my detective skills. And it was like, once I got started, I was just doing it nonstop. I was eating, drinking, sleeping, trying to figure this out. And by the second day, I had a glimmer of an idea of who her mother was. I had a name. And a week later, I knew both of their names. I can't help but think that somebody was tapping me on my shoulder, making me so obsessed. It's like, gotta find this, gotta find this. It's time to do this. I just couldn't believe it when she called and said, I found him. Like, I gave you a name and you met him?
So what does this story mean to you now then?
Well, more than anything that's happened to me in my life, it's given me a sense of there being something beyond what we're able to perceive in this realm. And that there are forces at work to conspire to put things together in such a way as things like this can happen.
That is so cool.
I know, isn't it?
And what an incredible gift that she gave to Meranie, helping her fit that puzzle together when she couldn't do it herself.
Yeah, but Tammy didn't consider it to be a big thing. Sure, she went without sleep for a week doing the research, but she also had a lot of fun doing it.
But that's exactly how service is a lot of times, right? The giver and the receiver are both benefiting at the same time.
Absolutely. And we're about to hear all that came from Tammy's active service.
Yeah, so taking us back into the story, right? Meranie is at the hospital. She suspects this security guard is her birth father. How does that moment go?
Well, she freaked out, and he pretty much did too.
And I started to cry and shake, and I almost passed out. And he's like, you okay? And I'm like, did you give a baby up for adoption? And I said my birth date, and he said, no. Oh, okay. And he's like, why would you say that? I said, is your last name Beebe? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, is your grandfather so-and-so? And he said, yes. And I said, I know for a certainty that I am related to your grandfather. So do you have an uncle? Do you have a cousin? Do you have a brother? Is there somebody that would have given a baby up? And all of a sudden, his pager started going off. And he goes, I want to talk to you. And I said, well, I'll be back here tomorrow. You can come find me. My head was spinning all the way home. I called my sister-in-law who does adoptions, and she's like, I know it's him. And I'm like, well, he said no. And she goes, well, you kind of caught him off guard. I'm like, yeah. So the next day I came back, and he took me down into the chapel. And he said, okay, so why do you think this? So I brought up the DNA chart and my tree, and I said, this is who I think my birth mother is. And he sat me down across from him, and he said, can I take your hands in mine? And I said, sure. And then all of a sudden, his pager started going off again. And he's like, I will be right back. Don't move. So I sat there for 10 minutes, and I just said a prayer, and I was like, help me to know how to handle all of this, because it's a lot. The last few days have been a lot. And he came back in, and he said, I am your birth father. He's like, what are you looking from me? And I said, I'm looking for a friendship. I have parents. They are my parents. But I want to say thank you. I want to get to know you. I want to know my history. I want to know my background.
So did he tell you about the circumstances?
I found out more, I think, of the birth details from my birth mother than from him. She was 19, and he was in just divorced, very messy divorce. He was fighting to be able to see his 1.5-year-old son at the time. And she wanted to keep me with everything she had. But her father was absolutely not. He was very against it. And she honestly had no choice. And so as soon as he found out, he hauled her down to the adoption agency and made her sign papers. And that was it. She didn't have a choice. He did. He willingly signed them, and he said he told her that that was the best thing for the baby. So,
Which in reality is true. It was the best thing for Meranie.
and he didn't even know that I think somewhere down the line he eventually heard that I was a girl, but they didn't really talk after the papers were signed.
After that first meeting, Meranie and her birth father started getting to know each other pretty well.
We've gained a really great relationship. He was there every day when I came to see Brady. We had a really good discussion. And I found out that I had half-brothers that I didn't know. I asked him, I said, do they know about me? And he's like, no. And that scared me. That did really scare me, because that was my greatest fear and I told him, I said, I'm not here to blow anything up. I don't want to cause problems. And I can back off. I can back away. It's fine. And he was like, no, not at all. So.
Yeah, the boys were pretty much, yay, we have a sister.
Yeah. Travis started texting me right away. Like, hey, sis. He just opened his arms wide, and Brock followed. And it kind of got to be a group text. And first it was texting, which I think was more comfortable for all of us to slowly work into it,
So Travis and Brock are her half-brothers.
Yeah, from their dad, Keith.
Got it.
And they all lived in different states, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah. So getting together took some planning. After several months, they met up at a family fun center midway between them all. It was one of those places with a skating rink, arcade, and axe throwing. Meranie was so excited, but she was mortified when they ran into problems with their vehicle on the way there.
And we were probably an hour and 45 minutes late. I was dying. I was so embarrassed. I was so nervous. I was stressing, and we show up, and they were just hugs and kindness, and immediately the fear and the tension just dissolved. And the men started getting competitive with the axes, and it was great.
And the timing here is actually really important because Meranie's birth father was about to have some heart trouble, and she was able to help him get through that. And then her half-brother Travis ended up dying in 2023. And because they met when they did, Meranie was able to have that relationship with him before he was gone.
It was another testament that God knows us. He sees us, he hears us, and he's there for us.
But meanwhile, isn't Brady still really sick? What's happened with his liver?
Yeah, and again, there are some amazing connections here. So doctors were able to stabilize Brady with some temporary solutions, but they told him at this point he'll need a transplant within a year or two. He's on the donor list for a liver, but he's pretty far down, and over the next couple of years, he's getting more and more sick.
Can he even keep working through all this time?
For the most part, yes. He's an equine nutritionist, and he's able to do a lot of his work from home on the computer. Meanwhile, Meranie was also working from home.
Which was a huge blessing so that I could help, obviously, take care of him and the kids and the farm and the animals.
Wait, they have a farm?
Yeah, it's just 6 acres, but they've got horses and chickens and a cow, and they grow hay for the horses.
I watched him go from tired to exhaustion. Like, he would try to get as much work in, and then he would have to have a nap and then wake up and get as much work in. And so he just didn't have the energy. There was one time we were trying to hook up one of our implements to the tractor, and he was so weak and tired.
I just couldn't lift that thing.
And I couldn't lift it.
That's where, like the Clydes, they just stepped up and basically said, okay, we're going to take care of your hay for this whole year.
It's just amazing, that feeling of gratitude of, I can't do that. Thank you for helping me do something we just can't do.
And who are the Clydes?
They're neighbors. I actually met them. Do you want to hear their side of the story?
For sure. But first, let's take a quick break. This is a special Light the World episode of Top of Mind from the BYU Radio Podcast Network. We're exploring the power of service to change lives. For some ideas on how you can light the world with service this holiday season, check out lighttheworld.org. We'll be right back. I'm Julie Rose. Are you tired of feeling overwhelmed by conflict in your life? I know I am, and I need to tell you about a new podcast from BYU Radio that has really made a difference for me. It's called Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily Taylor. Every episode, Dr. Emily Taylor, who's a developmental psychologist and a certified mediator, coaches somebody through a real conflict in their life, from family struggles to work disputes, neighborhood conflicts to in-law disagreements. And Dr. Emily Taylor gives strategies for them, but also for us, to find the root of a conflict, to identify solutions, to create positive change, and really to navigate conflict more confidently in our daily lives. I think you're going to love it. Check out Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily Taylor on BYU Radio or anywhere you get podcasts.
We're looking at what I consider the most beautiful mountain in the world, which is Mount Timpanogos right there. And it is just it's a magical valley with great people. So my name's Kurt Clyde, and we're residents of Heber forever. And so right here, we raise some alfalfa hay, and the Karrens as well. They've got about 6 acres right there that they feed their horses. So we have to plant this hay in the spring, and then we water it all summer, and then we cut it and put it into hay bales, and that's what feeds our animals in the winter. And so, it's 2 times a day watering. It's, there's fertilizer that goes in the spring, and then you have to cut it. There's usually 3 crops, so you're cutting the hay 3 times a year, cutting it, raking it, baling it. And it's a pretty extensive process.
So when did you first learn then about Brady's condition?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. It was right after he got diagnosed, and they found out that his liver was failing. Yeah, I think they just come to us, and we were just visiting with him one day, and they told us that he wasn't doing well. And I think when they finally realized that he had to have a transplant, then we're like, "Whoa, that's pretty crazy." We didn't realize it was to that point, and but you could tell he just didn't look good. He just didn't feel good, and you could tell that he'd try to do things, and sweet little Meranie would be out there all the time trying to move water and picking up his slack, and that's where it was like, they need help. And we're right here doing it. It wasn't a big sacrifice for us. I don't want you to think it was at all, because it wasn't. It's just, we saw a need, and we just was able to help them. And it did take a few minutes out of our day, but it was really cool to see everybody kind of come together. And there was some ward members when they put their sprinkler system in. There was a gentleman in our ward named Les Blades who came over. And Les didn't, he didn't run equipment or didn't maybe necessarily know exactly how to put a sprinkler system, but he was here every single day helping put that sprinkler system in. And I learned a lot about service through Brother Blades. I realized that sometimes just showing up is all you need to do. He didn't know how to run equipment maybe, or didn't know much about it, but he was there with a shovel and a smile, and it meant a lot. So anyway, and they're always so appreciative. The little girls would bring cookies over. I gained 15 pounds on cookies from when they'd come over every week, which was good. They make good cookies.
What a great bit of advice about service he just gave there. I love it. Sometimes just showing up is all you need to do.
And showing up with cookies, right?
Amen.
And I love how reciprocal it was. Like with Tammy, Maranie's cousin, who helped with the genealogy, Kurt Clyde and his whole family, they just added a little bit more to their daily routine. And the community came and did what they could. And all these efforts ultimately kept the Karrens afloat for several years, all while they hoped and prayed for a liver to become available. But they did have another option. They could try to find someone who could donate part of their own liver.
Somebody who's still alive?
Yeah, the liver actually regenerates. So if Brady could find someone who matched his size and blood type, that person could give him up to 3/4 of their liver. And then in 6 weeks or so, it would regrow in the donor.
That is amazing. But it also sounds like a pretty big surgery.
Yeah, it is. And Brady was pretty uncomfortable asking anyone to do it.
How do I ask somebody to give up 6 weeks of their life to go through all the surgery, to have to deal with all those other things?
It took about, 2.5 years before we were comfortable doing that. And so we put it off for a long time. And I was talking to the transplant coordinator who helps us, and she's like, it's time. You need to get it out there. And so I talked to Brady, and he's like, well, he's like, I'm not going to ask. So I put it out there. I wrote, people shared it all over. There were people in New York who we didn't even know, friends of friends of friends, who went and got checked to see if they were a match.
So Ken, unbeknownst to us, went out and got tested and found that he was at least a blood match.
Well, I think Nicole knew he had that blood type, his wife, and so she asked him if he would be willing to look more into it.
Nicole is Meranie's cousin, but Brady didn't really know them.
Yeah, I think he had probably only met Ken once or twice. Yeah, so, but that just goes to show what kind of person Ken is. Yeah. Ken's amazing.
My name is Kenneth Kimber. I'm from Cedar City. I was military for 21 years, so I was all over the place. I was a helicopter pilot. I flew Chinooks.
Now Brady calls you his liver buddy. Do you know that?
Oh, yeah. I've actually got him on my phone as my liver buddy. So that's the same.
When the call went out to find a liver for Brady, Ken had recently retired from the military.
When a person retires, it is an emotional time where you've been part of something that is so huge and so involved in protecting those that are around you, doing all you can patriotically, being in uniform. When you leave that, it's I don't know the best way to describe it, but you're left wanting. So you want to have a drive, you want to have a purpose. And I mean, I didn't do it because of that, but it did give me focus and purpose. And so I'm like, you know what? Why not? I might as well do it. What do I have to lose? So I'm going to go for it. There was a ton of testing and travel back and forth. One of the most unique experiences was going in and getting the blood work. I went to the hospital to get the blood work, and they took 46 vials. And it was a ton. Just as I'm walking in, get a phone call from the hospital. Hey, they messed up on one of the labs. Can you come back in? And I'm like, sure, not a problem. So I go down there, get the lab drawn again, come back home.
I was like, did you have any blood left at that point?
I know, right? I get back home, and I get another call. You're not going to believe this. They messed it up again. So I had to go in 3 different times the same day to get the blood drawn.
So this is 2023. Brady's already been sick for a few years. It takes several months, but Ken finally passes all the tests, and they go in to do the transplant. They're both in the waiting room with their wives.
And we were just chatting away and just discussing things and making jokes. And then they took me back. Last thing I remember is I don't even remember getting on the table. Waking up was a weird experience. The first thing I remember is one of the nurses. I remember asking, how's Brady? How's Brady? How's Brady? And she took my hand and she said, I need you to know something. We didn't take your liver. Come to find out, the doctors that were doing the surgery, we had the main doctor there that was in charge of all of the transplants. She said, I'm not a religious person, but I had your liver in my hand and I felt like this isn't going to work. It's not going to be the right one. So they put it back, stitched me up. Oh, they did take out my gallbladder and found a hernia, fixed that one. And, I spent the next week in the hospital just recovering.
It was a really rough recovery. They cut him from his sternum down to his belly button and then about a foot over to the right of his stomach. I mean, just this huge scar. And it didn't heal right. So he's had multiple surgeries since, just lots of pain. He had to stop working at Home Depot because he couldn't lift anything for months and months. So it's been a big deal physically and financially for Ken and his family.
And then they didn't even do this. They didn't even do the transplant after all of that.
I mean, really, it is just such a bummer. And the doctor told the Karrens she had never stopped a transplant mid-surgery like that. The Karrens were, of course, just devastated.
Well, first I was worried about Ken, and then just kind of that shock and disappointment of, it's a feeling of we're back to zero. It's like, you're just right at the finish line. You're ready to cross it. You're just ready to be handed that gold medal. And then all of a sudden they're like, nope, go back to the beginning. And it was hard. What was harder was telling my girls. They were crying and very upset. And I knew he was going to be so upset. Because that's Ken. Ken, he goes in ready to give you 110%. And he was. When we went and visited him after and he woke up, he was apologizing to me. And I'm like, Ken, whatever you need ever, it's yours, man. Just tell me it's yours. So, but it's one of those things where it's like, how do you ever really repay that? Can you? No.
Julie, you and I were both kind of in shock when Ken was telling us about just how awful the aftermath of the surgery has been for him. Like, he must regret it, right?
Exactly. We asked him that, of course. And he said, no, I don't regret it. And then I was like, okay, but knowing what you know now, that you were going to go through such a dramatic surgery, and there was such a high chance that it actually wasn't going to help Brady at all. Would you do it?
In a heartbeat. Of course I would. He needed it.
He was a stranger practically.
Yeah. But he needed it.
I wouldn't do it. He is for sure a better person than me.
I know. Me too.
Oh, and just like, what a roller coaster for the poor Karens. Where does this even leave Brady with his need for a liver?
Well, remember how Meranie has this new half-brother up in Wyoming she only just discovered?
No way. Is he actually a match?
He is a match.
No. Unbelievable. Okay, well, we definitely need to hear about that. But first, let's take another very quick break. This is Top of Mind from the BYU Radio Podcast Network. I'm Julie Rose. I'm here with Amber Borowski-Johnson. We'll be right back. Hey, friends. I would like to take just a moment and introduce you to another show from the BYU Radio family of podcasts. It's The Lisa Show. Lisa Valentine Clark is the host. She's a comedian, actress, believer, single mom. And the show delves into the multitude of challenges that shape our lives, whether it's parenting, mental health questions, social issues. Lisa and the Council of Moms will tackle it and do it with a lot of laughs along the way as we attempt to figure out this thing called life. So check out The Lisa Show. Listen wherever you get podcasts. This is a special edition of Top of Mind in honor of Light the World, which is a month-long initiative of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to light the world with acts of service each December. You can find more at lighttheworld.org. So back to this incredible story of Brady and Meranie Karren. At this point, Meranie has connected with her birth father in a most unexpected way, thanks to the expertise and the kindness of a distant cousin. At the same time, her husband Brady is in liver failure, and the first attempt to get a transplant from a living donor doesn't go through, but requires heroic sacrifice on the part of the donor. And Brady, for his part, is back to square one, still in need of a liver.
Yeah, and in comes Meranie's half-brother, Brock, whom she only just met recently when she found her birth father.
Brock actually, he sent me a text, and he's like, I really want to talk to you and Brady. Is there a time tonight we could talk on the phone? And I was like, oh. I didn't even know he had got the blood test to go see if he was a match.
The blood type, yeah.
And so he called and he said, I'm the same blood type. I've talked to Autumn, which is his wife, and we feel really good about it. And we're going to move forward and see if we can be a donor. And I was like, are you sure? You've got little kids too. Do you really want to risk all that? And he was like, yes, family looks out for family.
I mean, it was a concern that something could go wrong, but I felt like I was doing the right thing and it would end up okay in the end.
Okay, so this is Brock, Meranie's half-brother. By the time he called them to volunteer his liver, he already knew he was a match, blood-wise, but there were still lots of other tests to go through to get qualified for the surgery. And he lives in Wyoming, so he had to burn all his vacation time trekking back and forth to the transplant center in Salt Lake City.
They had me do CT scans of my organs to make sure there was nothing wrong. They did all sorts of blood work. I mean, it was It was everything you could think about they tested for. And then they brought up the weight issue. And I'm a big guy. I always have been. I think I was right around 225, 230 at the time. And they're like, okay, we need you down to, I think they said 217. I was like, okay. So I went on a diet and I started exercising and stuff. And I got down to 217. I let them know. I'm like, hey, I made it to the weight. And they're like, okay, actually, we need you to like 210, I think. And this went on. They kept going. They stretched it out forever. And I think it was like 6 months, maybe. And at the end, they're like, we need you down to 197. I'm like, there's no way. I went into high school over 200 pounds.
Right. But are you starting at this point, like second guessing? Like, am I making a mistake with this?
No, I never thought for once that it would be a mistake. Seeing how good of a person he is, seeing how much his daughters love him, and seeing how much Meranie loves him. He's a great guy, and something had to happen for him. And I knew I could be that something, so I had to do it.
So, but what was taking so long? I mean, why didn't they just schedule the surgery? Because Brady's pretty desperate at this time, right?
Yeah, he really was. And later they would find out that there were some things the medical team wasn't exactly telling them. But all they knew at the time was that poor Brock kept being told to lose more and more weight. And the hospital still would not schedule the transplant. Meranie says they were starting to get angry and even looking for a different team to do the transplant.
I felt like we weren't being told things, that they weren't hearing me. So I had been talking to the coordinator, and they're like, why are you pushing so hard? And I'm like, well, he's declining. And we were talking about how much we were paying out of pocket.
Yeah, basically, we still had, $20,000, $30,000 a year for 4 or 5 years. Every year, keep piling up, right? That you have to take care of.
And she's like, you guys really need to do some sort of fundraiser. And she gave me a whole bunch of ideas. And she's like, do you have anybody who could help you? And I was like, I don't know. And that's kind of putting us out there a little bit more and asking more people to help us, which is really uncomfortable and hard.
Well, it's one of the lessons that I learned from this, because I am not good at asking for help. That's not me. I'd rather be the one doing the helping than asking for help. And I really learned a lesson in how to allow other people to be able to serve. I had to humble myself and say, okay, it's okay to need help every now and again. I've got to give somebody else a chance to be a blessing, that's just not in my character, right? I'd much rather be on the other end, but it was a lesson I had to learn.
Hi, you must be Amber.
You must be Cynthia.
Yeah, come on in. I'm Cynthia Blades. I live in Heber City, Utah. The Karrens are in our congregation, or our ward, church ward here in Heber. I was over at their house just chatting, and Meranie said, if I remember correctly, she just kind of said, I need to come up with some money. We need to help. Because insurance, let's face it, doesn't cover the cost of everything when you go through a transplant. And she said, would you help me? And I'm like, sure. I don't know what we'll do. So the only social media I'm on is Facebook. So I put it out there on Facebook. I said, trying to do is fundraisers. Anybody ever done a fundraiser before? And what did you do? And somebody responded that they had had a kiddie carnival. So I contacted that lady and I said, well, tell me about it. What did you do? And she said they just had little booths set up around the park where kids could play games. And they paid money for tickets, and each game was per ticket. I thought, well, I can do that. Holy moly. It just took off. It was amazing. I contacted local businesses at first because we decided we'd have a silent auction. The response was incredible. I think when all was said and done, we had over 100 businesses.
It's pretty amazing. So, you yourself live with some health challenges.
Yes.
So tell me about kind of why did you feel so compelled to help them despite your own troubles, struggles, and what you were going through?
Yeah, I didn't give it a second thought. When Meranie said, can you help? Granted, when I said yes, I didn't realize what it was going to entail. But But I don't know. I didn't give it a second thought. And I mean, I have chronic fatigue syndrome. I'll be honest. I believe in prayer and I believe in fasting. And there was a second and third set of invisible hands that helped me through the entire process. My husband kept saying, you're doing too much, and he was waiting for me to crash, and I never crashed.
So this all comes together over the course of about a month. People are volunteering to do game booths and donate food, and local businesses are sending checks. And a few days before the carnival is set to happen, the Karrens go to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints temple to pray about Brady's situation.
And when we were in there, the thought just came like a lightning bolt. Be still and know that I am God. And before I walked out of the temple, my phone rang and there was a liver. Turns out what they weren't telling us is because I had such a big liver. They realized even if we did three quarters of a living donor, they didn't think it would work. So they wanted to wait for a full liver. And that's what happened.
So our girls were at home with my parents, and the cop showed up on the doorstep because they couldn't get a hold of us. So they did a welfare check, and my girls were pretty hysterical because they told us you only have a certain amount of time to accept it before it moves on to somebody else. And so they were panicked. They were all hysterical.
And then I thought, you know what? If I go to the hospital, I'm not going to eat anything for a while. So we're going to get dinner before we go to the hospital. So we went and ate something and then ran up and packed up.
Oh, he ate. I did not. Yeah. I was bawling through the entire thing. I was stressed out of my mind. And the poor waiter was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not okay."
I'm sorry.
So after all of that weight loss and the back and forth to the transplant center, it sounds like they didn't even end up using part of Brock's liver, Meranie's half-brother.
No, a whole liver from a deceased donor became available that was a match for Brady, which had been an option all along, but it's just so unpredictable if an organ will become available and if Brady would even be high enough on the list to receive it. And it's all done anonymously, so they still don't know anything except that the donor was a young man who passed away. Meanwhile, though, they're racing the clock to get to the hospital and start the surgery prep in time for the transplant to happen early the next morning.
So, pins and needles all night, not a lot of sleeping. And then they said typically a liver transplant can be anywhere from 4 to 6 hours-ish is what they say. And his was 10 plus. So I kind of was about... After 7 hours, I started to kind of panic a lot. I was pretty calm till then, but then I was like, okay. And they said every single step that they came across, there was complications. But it all turned out. Like everything was able to be overcome and they got through it. But he just like popped back so fast. He did so well.
We were really blessed. Like they said, you'll be in the hospital for a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks. We were there for 6 days.
But the recovery was still pretty intense.
Man, I couldn't get out of a chair without help for 3 months.
Yeah. So
they cut me here, and
He looks like a peace sign.
They basically cut me in half.
He had about 300 staples.
It was.
So
yeah. It took a little while.
I couldn't work for at least 3 months, so that was hard too.
Did the fundraiser, the carnival, end up happening though?
Yeah, actually just a few days after Brady got his transplant. And Meranie was able to be there for a bit, and it raised a little over $15,000.
I was just flabbergasted. And people would just we were getting envelopes in the mail of money. People, we want to help.
Yeah.
And
or right behind us is a business, and they just put a check in the mail. And I was like, people just heard. And again, they just heard and they acted, and that was a lesson to me about acting. That's one thing I've really tried to do is when I feel an impression, act. Don't wait. Act now, don't give it a second thought because so many people did just act and it blessed our lives immensely. We would be, I hate to think where we would be if people hadn't stepped in.
People I hadn't talked to in years that jumped in. Folks from high school that wanted to help. And it's humbling to say the least, but it does show you that I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your background is. People are good, and people want to help people, and that's what it's all about.
A lot of things had to come together with just the timing of everything and all these people coming forward as we're talking about, light the world and all these gifts that these people possess that they were kind of able to give you. But one of the ultimate gifts was about this liver that you received. That really, someone had to lose a loved one so that you could live. So what do you say to that family?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to allow me to raise my daughters. And to, be with my family. That's something you can, again, never repay. And so my goal is to try to live the best life I can with the gift that they gave me. And that's the goal, right? To not worry so much about the little stuff, but to really focus on making sure the things that matter are taken care of. How do you repay that gift? So the only thing I can do is to try to be a better person every day. Try to, be somebody that donor would be proud to say, I'm glad I gave you my liver.
We know that there is a mother and father that misses their son. And in the midst of their tragedy, they said yes to help others live on. We love you. Thank you.
Amber, if we were making this as a movie for Hollywood, we would have had Meranie's newly discovered half-brother Brock be the one who ultimately saved Brady's life, right? Because that's the perfect Hollywood ending. And I'll admit, at first I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh no, that's what I wanted is the payoff. But the thing is that I actually think the real story here is better. It's more impressive because you've got all of these people who are bending over backwards, losing a ton of weight, getting cut open for nothing, spending hours of their time researching or raising money, and even pushing through their own illness to serve the Karrens. And in the end, they all benefit because they draw closer as a family and a community. It's just a beautiful story.
Absolutely.
And Brady, he's better now, right?
Yeah. His health is much better now. The liver is functioning well, and the family's getting back to their regular routines. And I have to tell you, Julie, that I'm one of those people who benefited too. I felt just deeply guided to find this story, and I learned about the Karrens in a very unexpected way. I had no idea how much it would help me personally.
Oh, well, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. Almost a year ago, I was already navigating just the toughest year of my life when my dad was unexpectedly diagnosed with an aggressive cancer. He passed away just 2 weeks later, 3 days before I could fly home to Canada to say goodbye. And a few days after returning to Utah, after his funeral, my father-in-law passed away. And I still just get emotional remembering the outpouring of support from loved ones and strangers that carried our family through those weeks. But it was a few months later, I came across the Karren story. I was still reeling from grief and questioning the timing of everything. But what I learned from Meranie finding her birth father during one of her darkest moments in that hospital elevator, and from all the love and service leading up to Brady's transplant, it's just that God's timing is perfect, that miracles are all around us. And at the end of the day, we are the miracles, showing up for each other as we give and receive service. And in the end, that's what Light the World is all about.
It's just beautiful. Amber, thank you so much for bringing us this story today.
You're welcome.
Top of Mind is a BYU Radio podcast. This Light the World episode was produced by Amber Borowski-Johnson of KPCW in Park City and me. Our audio engineer is Hayden Thompson. For more ideas on how you can light the world with acts of service this holiday season, visit lighttheworld.org. I'm Julie Rose. We'll talk soon.